Give it like a minute or so for people to join.
Give it a moment for other people leaving meetings to join another meeting.
Yeah, and this is why we record our session. So a lot of people go back into our website where we post them.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
And it allows people for accessing Zoom.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead. Did I record already? Yes, I did.
Yep.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Today we have Nick and Bernard. They will be talking about Indigenous finance and food and beverage and agriculture at FCC. And I'll just hand it right off to you guys.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm just going to be sharing my screen, making sure that the sound is on. And we shall begin. Okay. Me'ahweg noch tet rensquest, Secwepemc and Nuu-chah-nulth restekwan, Chiok noch rankiha. Hello, good afternoon. My traditional name translates to running elk. My English name is Bernard Gilbert. I am Shuswap from the Williams Lake First Nation, and my mother is Red Woman Bird, and my great-great-grandfather was hereditary chief. And I am a senior relationship manager with FCC. I work for the BC region based in the Surrey office. Nick?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Nick Boucher. I work as a relationship manager on the Indigenous Financing team at Farm Credit Canada. I was born and raised in Winnipeg, and that's kind of where I'm based in again in terms of working with Indigenous communities in Manitoba.
Perfect. So just want to start with taking a moment and thanking Can-Do for making this discussion today happening. We know that everyone's schedules is different from across the nation. So if you know of anyone that might be of interest of today's talk, please feel free to share the information with them. And just so you don't have to take notes, what I could do is I can share today's PowerPoint deck with the organizer following this call. So today, FCC, we're going to be chatting about what Indigenous financing in food and beverage and agriculture at FCC looks like.
Yeah, so we just wanted to give everyone kind of a video of a community that we've worked with recently, just to kind of demonstrate, some of the work that we have been within the organization working on. So Bernie, I'll let you kind of play the video, and I can kind of explain kind of some of the background story afterwards of where we led to and how we got to where we're there.
Sure.
To me, people are most important than anything else in this community.
Our belief is everything is connected, and what you take, you've got to give something in return from the land, from the tree. That's where the roots come from, and what you build, and everything is connected. And we've tried to look at all different kinds of businesses and sectors that covers all of that. Our hope is to build this farm up to 10,000 acres, and I'm sure we're going to reach that goal.
There's two things that every First Nation has, and it's people and a land base right at home. And I think agriculture in general, more and more First Nations are looking at this as an economic development opportunity. A lot of people are excited about the opportunity and what agriculture could be for First Nations people and communities.
My name's John Wozniak, and I come up here to be a farm manager for Pelican Lake. The challenges are just to get the right personnel to come on the farm and work together as a team.
I talked with John and he said, well, he'd like some help and needed somebody that had a little bit of experience. So I come on board and been helping him ever since. I've always wanted to see a farming operation on the reserve here because it's a great sense of life. You get to know the land a little more. Then a lot of the land wasn't getting used. So with the farming operation now, it's being utilized. So I'm very happy about that.
If we all make it work as a unit, just imagine what we can do. Just imagine.
I think it means a lot to the community, like it's showing the young people how to farm and stuff like that. It's been very good seeing that the young guys are taking a great initiative and participating in this farming activity, and they seem to be enjoying it quite a bit, so I'm very happy about that.
No, honestly, I never thought I'd be a farmer. Picked up on a lot of stuff pretty quickly. I just got to get some hands-on experience now.
It's been awesome. I love them. They're great. Alfred has been helping me with a lot, teaching me stuff and giving me knowledge about the fields and all that stuff.
My favorite machine is probably the sprayer. It can cover a lot of ground in such a short time. And
If you look at our staff right now, we're fairly young, and that's encouraging because that's the next generation that has to take over from us. They're willing to learn and want to be here. So if they can learn and pass it on to their children, the farm will be very successful.
It's time that we've stepped forward to manage and take care of our lands. It's our young people that are going to benefit. Not just generation, but the next generation to come. We made it a reality and we're proud of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bernie. So to kind of play the tape back a little bit, in 2022, Pelican Lake First Nation Chief and Council decided not to renew their 5,800 acre leased land, and then decided that they were going to start farming it themselves. Since then, 2023, this past year was the first crop. They've employed 6 people throughout the season. The farm manager has been contracted for 5 years, and with plans of community members to take on the role afterwards. They continue to gain support from the community that at first was skeptical, but has been really on board. In terms of long-term possible expansion, they're looking to expand to possibly 10,000 acres in the near future, and then really looking at some possible options for long-term investment in the land and the people who they're working with. So yeah, again, a great video that we recently made a couple of months ago in the fall with Pelican Lake, and really looking forward to giving them the best opportunity to succeed within the agriculture space. So just a quick overview about FCC and who we are. So we're Commercial Crown Corp for the federal government, and we focus on agriculture, agribusiness, and agri-food processors. And as the presentation goes on, we're going to explain a little bit more what all that exactly means, right? And so we're the only lender that's focused on this sector of the food, beverage, and ag. In addition to financing, we support our customers through that knowledge, software, or industry connections.
So over the past couple of years, FCC knew that there was going to be an opportunity within the Indigenous space. So FCC is committed in investing in Indigenous economic reconciliation. And we see that agriculture and food industry as one of the significant opportunities for this country and Indigenous peoples over the next century. And with our CEO, newly appointed CEO, she has developed a new strategy that has Indigenous peoples listed as one of the core pillars. And just watched a video of our CEO at a conference, and she shared a couple of words that really resonated, is that stay curious and don't be afraid to begin. So as part of the Indigenous lending team's goals, it's very crisp and concise. What we strive to do is offer impactful and accessible lending, be ambassadors and connectors in the ag industry, and push to remove barriers to access to capital while providing excellent customer service.
Yeah, so as kind of we previously mentioned, we 100% dedicated to food, beverage, and ag, and our team is a team of Indigenous employees, that whether that be Métis or First Nations, and we'd love to get Inuit representation at some point, hopefully in the future. In terms of capital, it seems like that's a very obvious topic within the Indigenous business space, and it's still a big issue that we're looking to address, and that's with every discussion with a community member or an entrepreneur, and really move the goalposts internally of how we can provide capital a lot faster and with less hiccups maybe as we have in the past. In terms of acumen, we really can help with when it comes to financial literacy or advice on business options, whether that's buying a new piece of equipment or what technology you might be using. And we have an entire company with a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that aspect. And then another big piece is just the connection, and that's leveraging, FCC's existing partners and industry contacts within, the agriculture or the food business space models.
And one common question that we get asked is, who is it that we serve in terms of providing financing options? So essentially entrepreneurs, as well as Indigenous nations and peoples both on and off reserve, which includes economic development owned entities as well that are separate from the nation level. So here's a snapshot of what our team looks like. So Prairies West is Indigenous representation with Nick, who's on the call, Milton, who's responsible for Saskatchewan, and Tatum, who's responsible for Alberta, and myself responsible for BC. So the Indigenous financing team is almost 2 years old. So we're still considered essentially a startup. And within it all started with Milton. Milton's our most senior person on the team. And within 1 year, we onboarded 4 new employees, which includes our Indigenous director. And as Nick had mentioned a moment ago, it'd be great to have someone representing the Inuit region. And from what I recall, I believe we are looking to get a couple of people east over the next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in terms of what do we finance, Bernie's going to kind of show a couple of pictures in terms of operations or relevant topics when it comes to an agriculture operation, what an agribusiness or food and logistics looks like. So we touch all the businesses that get products from the field to the barn to the consumer. A key example that we like to use, if you think of a jar of salsa, we can finance the person that makes the seed to where that seed is going to be planted, to the fertilizer that's going to be used, to the truck or the equipment that's going to move that tomato when it's done, to the machine that's going to process that tomato into the jar of salsa, and all the spices and included, right? So we do everything except for the retail side of things. When you think of it, even that little example, there's all just right there was seven different pieces that we could finance in terms of the operation. Of course, there's many more. This picture over here is just kind of overviewing wineries, abattoir, packaging, food processing, distribution, greenhouse, aquaculture, a lot of different spectrums when you really look at it. It's not just the grain and the combine. There's so many different avenues to look at.
Yeah, just to add another note to that, there's 2 common things that we usually hear. It's like either they haven't heard of the FCC, or people think we only did farming. So that's not the case, as you can see on this slide. As long as there's a food component to it, attached to it, whether it's planted, grown, harvested, processed, and shipped, we can help with financing options. And this is where it gets a little interesting. So we also help within the traditional Indigenous harvesting space. So 2 years ago, before the Indigenous financing team was put in place, these were considered ineligible. That's not the case now. So we do have a couple of customers in our books that has traditional harvesting products. So as you can see, it's very broad. And so with our Indigenous financing team in place, we're able to stretch those goalposts and try to make more things that were considered ineligible become eligible. So it's very exciting times for our team and for FCC to get into the Indigenous space. Now, so we partnered with a company called IC Canada. And what IC Canada does is they offer advisory services to business owners. And what they do is they'll help on a specific issue that a business is experiencing challenges with. So they'll work with said nation, said entrepreneur, and identify some key goals that they want to address, and they'll help them with it. And this service is available to FCC customers as well as potential FCC prospects. And this is usually done with 40 to 80 hours with a possibility of an additional 50 hours available. And this is great value. Like, this is heavily subsidized from the customer perspective, where it is 82% covered by FCC and 18% is covered from the customer. So just to put that into perspective, a $10,000 bill will decrease to $1,800. So it is of great value.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Bernie. Also, like the people that IC Canada hires are C-level execs, suite entrepreneurs themselves. So you're really getting it from someone who has run a business and has 20 to 30 years of experience in that industry as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I've already made a couple of referrals to IC Canada within my region. So just before we start slowing things down and start wrapping up, I want to highlight a few available community funding pockets that FCC has opened throughout the year, throughout its fiscal year. And it is also noting that there is no reporting requirements to access these funding pockets.
Yeah, so just to kind of lean into the community funding. So this year's fiscal year has been used up, but thankfully next fiscal is like 5 days away. So we're really excited for that. So this past fiscal year, we helped 28 nations when it comes to the community funding, and that's from projects for $1,000 ask to about $10,000, and that's from a community kitchen, and that can be getting a new fridge or a freezer or commercial oven. We also help some of the programs are community gardening, a food literacy program, food programs, meat processing. So yeah, this would be just pause it for like 5 seconds. Would be a great opportunity to scan the QR code to be able to access kind of the links in terms of the application process and stuff like that.
We'll also be sharing the PowerPoint deck with everyone following this as well.
Lovely.
And with the school food assistance program, it is available up to $1,000 each for food security initiatives. And within this program, we used up the entire budget and we helped with 80 Indigenous schools all across Canada. And some of the projects that we help focus on within the food assistance program is purchasing, transporting, and distributing of nutritious food, purchase, installation, and repair of equipment needed for a food program, and costs related to implementing a food program. And that is all.
All right,
It-
so there is a question in the chat box. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. It says, how is pine sap harvested? Where is the pine sap used outside of sanitation products? Can you guys see the question there?
Yeah, I see it. Like
Okay.
in my area, I haven't yet delved into pine sap harvesting. It'd be great because I'm learning quite a bit when it comes to Indigenous opportunities. And with this, I would love to sit down and I'd love to understand. So off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I'd love to get this information and get it back to you.
Yeah,
Nick?
I'm in the same boat. Yeah, I don't think I've heard of pine sap harvesting when it comes to sanitation of products. So more, to be honest, for me, it'd be curiosity. Yeah, the same approach, Bernie, just to learn and see. Maybe there is a potential. We don't know. But yeah, would be love to just have a coffee with whoever asked the question and see.
Sorry,
And-
sorry, it's Ken. It's Ken. It was on
Mhm.
on your slide. The pine.
Yep.
Pine Sol is sanitation product. Pine
Okay.
Sol. Okay. And also, I guess the question of with pine is also cedar. Cedar is used in Vicks Vapor Rub and various
Mhm.
other products. Is cedar involved? Are there any Indigenous projects using harvesting cedar and cedar products? I believe the cedar actual leaves, or I guess they're called leaves, are actually harvested. So anyway, just a question.
That's a great question, Ken. And so just to recap, it's a question around pine sap as well as cedar and how we could possibly help within that space. So as long as we can tie it to the agri-food, agribusiness, we can help with provide financing options within that space. And so like I mentioned a moment ago, as long as we can connect the two as it's contributing to agriculture as a whole across Canada.
Thank you.
And I do see Vicky has a question. Is there a cost associated with our services? So with FCC, we're both Nick and I are relationship managers. So we are salary employees and there are no costs for our services. So just to provide an overview of what the process would look like from a nation level is that let's say a nation in BC is interested in a hog pasture opportunity. So I would have a conversation with them and I would ask for a business plan. It could be light and just a very light business plan, financial statements, and as well as the cash flow, what their cash flow statements would look like. Now, those are very technical. So we also have templates on our site and we'll be able to help with developing those. We're also in talks about developing a pilot program where FCC staff will be able to help with those. And from there, we would look at the overall financial performance and have a look at some of the quantitative and qualitative risk factors. And then we would present options for financial products because every single industry is different. And we just want to make sure that we are building our people up for success. We're not going to just say good luck. The way I describe it is I'm sitting on the same side of the table as our people because I also grew up on the reserve. I also experienced some of those hardships and I understand some of the dialogue. Follow-up question. Do you recommend certain financial institutions to help service the finances? So, Nick,
Yeah, I would say, do you recommend help service the finance? Like, I guess we would be helping with the financial needs and that aspect. Are there other banks that, like for example, in my region, it's talking with First Nations Bank of Canada pretty often, or Louis Capital Corp, where they will do grant funding for Métis entrepreneurs, or First People Economic Growth Fund that do grant programs as well. But we'll do traditional financing as on top of that as a service, I guess. That would be helping.
okay.
At the end of the day, we want to help, any Indigenous entrepreneur community, right?
So just to add on to that, so we, FCC, we provide financing options, which will provide a loan. So just to add on to what Nick had mentioned, there's going to be a component to our financing option with FCC is that there will be an ask of equity component to it. What that means is that we need some skin in the game from the nation. And with that equity contribution, it could be a combination of other Indigenous financial institutions, grants, which could be non-repayable, in combination with security. So if it's a nation or band owned, it could just be a general security agreement with the nation. Is there anything else, Nick, that you feel that we should just speak to that we could? Question from Vicky.
Yeah.
Home community used to be thriving in wild rice harvesting when they were a kid. Just wondering if this is something that we can bring back to life. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one thing that we are seeing is food insecurity. What we are striving for is to shift from food insecurity to food security. And sometimes that eventually dovetails into food sovereignty. And within BC, I was fortunate enough to visit Tea Creek Farms in the Kitwanga region and got to meet Jacob Beaton and his family. And they're doing traditional Indigenous food practices. Now, what they do is they bring people in, train them within traditional practices, and then the attendees are Indigenous. They could bring that knowledge back to their community. So if this is something that you might be of interest in, which would require financing solutions, we could definitely help with that. But we could also leverage partners along our journeys, which could complement that as well, because we could provide the financing backing to it. And within that same conversation, I could rope in entity like Tea Creek Farm in terms of the training aspect.
Yeah, just to add on, I'm in discussions with a wild rice producer here, and for him, it's working directly with the communities that are harvesting, and I do think there is a demand, especially because it's a product that grows back every year. Might not be the same yield every year, but and just the health benefits of it as well. And so definitely something we haven't in the past, but as we kind of mentioned in our changes in policies is looking to work better with traditional harvesting methods. So wild rice is definitely something we would love to look at and just learn more about and potentially finance if the needs are there.
So Vicky, we will be sending the presentation with Can Do so they can post it or distribute it to the members. And Vicky, Nick Boucher is actually the Manitoba representative.
I'll put my email in the chat so you can just email me, Vicky, and you can set up something.
And given that we are a startup and a government entity, we're getting comfortable with understanding our regions and understanding who the key players are within our respective regions. And some markets are substantially different than others in terms of areas of opportunity. Because in Alberta and Saskatchewan, you could see common theme with wheat, farming, beef, cattle, but within my region, within the BC region, 70% of the area is covered in mountains. So it leaves very little for agriculture, but there's other opportunities. So within the aquaculture landscape, when I first started, I needed to understand that because I knew that I'm a fisherman from the interior. There's a whole slew of fishermen along the West Coast. So I wanted to get a better understanding what eligibility looks like in that space. And up until a month or two ago, I was able to get a better definition. Anything shoreside, we can help with. That can include any processing plants, anything within the water, as long as it's underwater. If it's deemed wild, that's the gray area, unless we can develop a business case which clearly articulates regenerative practices. But anything that is considered farmed, we can help with. I know that there's that fishing moratorium that just happened, so fish farming is no longer taking place, but we can help with anything else that is farmed. So again, it ties back to moving those goalposts, because up until a year or two ago, anything fishing was not touched.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about the Manitoba market and where I, seeing opportunities. I think there are a few communities for sure that are leasing their land to non-Indigenous farmers, similar to what Pelican Lake was doing, and the chief and council got on board and wanted to farm their own land. And so I think there are a few communities that are well positioned to do a similar thing, right, where the land is already being farmed, and it's for chief and council finding the right people in terms of management, and then finding the right community connections, within that sector. So the grain provider or an agronomist to kind of understand the landscape of where the potentials are. And then I think there is a lot of talk about food security, but also potentially tying it with an economic development component of selling some of the product potentially within a local town, or vertical farming as well. I know that's a big topic of discussion too. Yeah.
Saw that Vicky also added a few additional things that she's driving. So safe travels. I'm glad that you're texting Vicky. And also used to have a cattle farming operation too when I was a kid, but none of that anymore. Keep hearing similar stories from other nations, and historically some nations were very into agriculture, and that is becoming non-existent of sorts. So with interest of nations wanting to get back into that and getting back into the agriculture, the food processing side, this is where it does eventually happen, where they integrate traditional practices with contemporary methods. So going from food insecurity to food security with also acquiring food sovereignty, but with a contemporary twist. So, Nick, I can't recall thinking anything else off the top of my head.
Yeah, I would just say I think we have a very eager team, and we know that there's big potential opportunity, and we still have a lot to learn. Yeah, and I think we are changing things internally in terms of finding ways to work around the Indian Act when it comes to on-reserve lending, or engaging more with communities. Developing the school feeding program, community funding that are specific, either only to Indigenous communities, or even the schools with a high number of Indigenous students. And so, yeah, if anyone on the call ever wants to reach out or have a coffee, I think me and Bernie are more than willing to sit down and talk more about what we're doing, or even if you want to meet someone within a specific agriculture or food business, we can also leverage those connections, as well as we kind of mentioned in the presentation.
Yep, and we'll definitely be sharing our contact information with the follow-up email to Can-Do. And if you know of anyone that might be of interest of this, please, as mentioned earlier, please share it, as we would love to have those conversations. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a matter of just staying curious, and don't be afraid to begin. So that will conclude our presentation.
I think there's one more question there about.
Oh, is there lots of wild rice harvesting in Manitoba? Nick, do you see?
Yeah, northern Manitoba especially. I know some of the Ontario-Manitoba border as well, it happens, but it's definitely more in the north, and I know a lot of that has to do with quality of water in the lakes as well. That's a big piece. And I think it's really just talking to the community members as well, because they know the land the best and the waterways.
All right, fantastic. Well, we'll give back time to everyone's schedules. And if there are any other questions, please do not hesitate, and we would love to have a chat.
Alrighty, so no more questions. Well, that is it for today. Thank you, Bernard and Nick, for joining us. You can go ahead and send me the presentation, and I will attach it up to the survey email I send out to the attendees.
Fantastic. All right, well, it's been a pleasure, and thank you once again, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.